Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially healthcare. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Taxi. Okay, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
We're back, folks. This is the More Money Show. Earlier on the show, I mentioned the one of the greatest scandals in human history, the $16 trillion that was spent by the global climate change industrial complex that said they were going to change the temperature of the planet and stop hurricanes and all of these things, stop floods. Of course, none of that has happened. $16 trillion later, not million, $16 trillion later. And I had a number of people who have texted me and emailed me just in the last few minutes saying, look, think of all the amazing things that could have been done with $16 trillion to save money and to save lives and to make the world a better place. And what if we just given that money to groups like Habitat for Humanity or the Salvation Army or the Red Cross? Or how about if we put that money into these Trump accounts for young people, and then they would have $1 million by the time they were 30 or 35 years old, and certainly several million when they retired. Think of the opportunity costs. Economists talk about opportunity costs. What could we have done with that money? By the way, we would have been better off burning that money. Probably if we just taken $16 trillion and burned the money, it probably would have been more effective than what has been done with that, with the solar panels and the windmills and all the stupid, green energy programs that have not changed anything and not saved a single life. I've just got to get that off my chest. Okay. One of my favorite and regular guests on this show is Jay Jackson, and he's one of my favorites because every time he comes on, we get a great audience response because he is so fascinating to talk to. Jay Jackson is the CEO of Abacus Global Management and is a great company. I love to talk about finance. I like to he's an expert on longevity, how you can live a longer life. Jay, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Steve. It's great to be here. Good to say hi to everyone again.
So, tell us for the virgins who have not heard your story before, just quickly tell people how Abacus is a really unique financial company.
Unique in the sense that we originate and educate people that their life insurance policy, current market, every other personal asset they own, meaning life insurance was defined by the Supreme Court as personal property, which means you can sell it and transfer that right to a third party at whatever market price it is. When it passes away, it might be worth $1 million, assuming they have $1 million. However, in today's value, right, based upon what their age is, based upon what their health style is, it has a current value, which means it's kind of like a living benefit today.
It's like an asset. It's an asset.
Liquidity. Yeah, it's a true asset. And if people treated it that way, you talk about trillion, there's $14 trillion of life insurance in force and 90% of it never pays a claim.
Wow.
That's a tragedy. Right. And it's because people look at their policy not for themselves. They don't see it as an asset. They don't see it as personal property. Stop making payments. It's the equivalent of stop making payments, mortgage payments on your home, and then just walk away from it instead of trying to sell it.
Yeah. So this is such an important point you're making, Jay, because, I have life insurance, and I bought life insurance 30 years ago when I was young and had young kids. I was, in my early 30s. And then I almost kind of forgot about the fact that I even had the life insurance policy, Jay. I think a lot of people in the same boat, like, oh yeah, I have this insurance policy. Sure. Oh yeah, it's worth a lot of money. And I bet a lot of people never even claim the money from the insurance companies. So, when I just turned 66, I know my audience, we have a lot of people who listen to this show who are in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s. What do we do? What is your advice to people like us in terms of what do we do with our insurance policy?
I think that when you think about insurance, right, when you initially took it out, it served a purpose because you were fearful. You wanted to make sure you had sufficient assets to cover your children. Right. And as you get older, those children have aged, right? So you don't need that maybe as much coverage or additional coverage that you might think.
That's right.
And the first mistake we make is that we think, we don't understand the contract. And the first rules of a contract are, how long are you going to be in that contract? And that's where the lifespan and the longevity really kicks in. You've got to do a truthful self-assessment as to what your health profile actually looks like. We aggregate all the medical files. We then let people know that your lifespan based upon your current medical situation is X. And now you'll know how long you're going to be paying premiums into that contract and be able to solve for what its today's value is. And I think everybody should do that, not just for their life insurance policy. You and I have spoken about this often. If you're going to defer Social Security, why would you, or Medicare, why would you defer if your lifespan is short, right? You got to know the contents behind that math. And so many people forget that.
No, so I'm 66. My kids are now financially independent. They don't need, a safety net any longer, as they did when they were, 15 or 12 years old. So what would you recommend to someone like me, that is, I don't even know the value of it. It could be as much. I mean, how much could my insurance policy be worth?
Look, like the average payout that we have at Abacus, we're a nationwide firm. This is heavily regulated in every single state. Yep. The average value comes in around 25% of what the ultimate payout is. So, but there's a lot of varying factors. The most important is you need to understand, and first and foremost, what is your health profile, Steve? That's the first question you got to ask yourself when it comes to any finances in retirement. How long are you going to be in retirement? The number one fear is running out of money in retirement, yet we do nothing to try to establish how long we're going to be in retirement. That's a huge mistake. So the first thing we do is let's get a picture of your current medical profile, then compare that medical profile to everyone else who's had a mortality experience who has the same profile as you do. And that's step one, right? And then you're going to look just like you would, whether it's your insurance contract or your home or any other future costs you have, because you got to weigh out and say, if I have a 20-year lifespan estimated, what are my costs going to be for the next 20 years, whether that's in your insurance contract or any other expenses? That's how we're going to be able to save. When I think about the 16 trillion that you just talked about that could have been lit on fire, right? Right. Man, could you imagine if we had taken the 16 trillion and put it to work towards our most vulnerable population? Right. Certainly kids, but what about our seniors? I'm going to share a stat with you, and it's heart-wrenching when you hear this. Do you know what the age group on a per population basis in the United States with the highest suicide rate is? It's not people in their teens and 20s like we all think. It's people over the age of 75. They are the leading age population for suicide. Our greatest generation has been forgotten, and they're lonely. Are the suicide need?
Yeah. Are those rates of suicide high because they've just kind of lost lust for living, or what? Or is it because they've run out of money? Or why do you think that we're seeing?
It's actually happened to a neighbor of mine. He lost his wife, and shortly thereafter, unfortunately, took his own. This happens more often than you think. Loneliness, depression, mental health impacts our seniors, and we do nothing about it. We don't talk to them about these kinds of things like, hey, getting outside really matters. Doing exercise really matters. Having community. You and I have talked about this on your show about learning a second language and establishing yourself as a traveler and somebody who gets involved in their community is a massive thing. I think that we can all do these little things, but man, if we put $16 trillion into education for our seniors, imagine what would have happened there, right? Like,
so with respect,
punishing to me, and some of this is shocking.
So with respect to Abacus, if someone contacts you all, what kind of service can you provide your clients?
Sure. The first thing we do is education. We help them better understand what their life arc is going to be. And what I mean by that, a lifespan is not a straight line. It's an arc of possibilities. We help them understand that says, okay, this is where you sit today medically. This is how we think that you can have an impact on that, and then apply that to their finances. That's what everybody's forgetting, right? We have target date funds to get you to retirement, but no guidance once you're there. And it should be customized solution for you. That's the first thing Abacus is going to help you with, is so you better understand your current medical profile to know first, let's look at your life insurance policy. That's an asset that is purely based on your lifespan. Let's get a better understanding of what that current value is, and then how that value can be extracted into other areas of your life. You know, the average policy we buy is over $1.5 million. This isn't somebody who's struggling to make their next payments. Most of the time, it's just another piece of their estate plan.
Right. Now, when people decide they want to cash out their their life insurance policy, someone like maybe me who's in my mid to late 60s, what is the average value of those? You gave a global value, but for the average person who's been paying in, say, since they were 25 years old, that policy has to be pretty valuable.
It is. It can range from, a few $100,000 to a few $1 million. We acquired a contract that was $100 million. We will pay out $250 million in 25, $250 million back into the economy, right? We're all looking for ways that we can, when you have volatile markets like this, people are looking for liquidity, and they forget that one of the most valuable assets they have for liquidity could be that insurance contract, and contacting Abacus would be a good place to start.
So that's amazing, because, I'm not retired yet, and I don't want to retire anytime soon. But when I do, I want to live a nice life in my retirement. I might want to get a house in Florida on the beaches of Palm Beach or something. And I don't have enough cash and saving to do that. But if I could maybe dig into my insurance, I might have the money to pay the down payment and to have a happy retirement.
That's exactly right. It's an asset that people didn't realize they had was an actual asset, and they can use those capital funds. A good portion of the people that we work with, and by the way, a lot of times we're working with their children, right? Because they're working with their mom and dad in their 80s who have these excess costs, didn't realize there was value there. And so it provides a better lifestyle, right? And what I think, this goes back to what we talked about, this suicide rate. It's not just communication and mental health. Our seniors don't want to be a burden on someone else. Right. And it's causing them to do, the number one cause of elder abuse in the United States is self-harm. And it's because they don't want to be a burden. And some of that is financial. And for them to be able to just be educated and know that they've got avenues, right, through their policy and maybe other financial resources that they weren't aware of, we have to literally take a mission on this and educate people that certainly this option exists for them.
So this is very good advice, Jay, and it is so important. And just in our last couple of minutes, one of the things that our audience loves is when you talk about how you can increase your longevity. What are your lifestyle habits that can put more years of your life on? So what are 2 or 3 of the best ones? We've talked about this before, but it bears repeating.
For sure. When you think about the basics, right, the number one thing that can extend your lifespan is working out, physical training. Understand that you increase, you need to increase your muscle mass because you're decreasing at 2 to 3% per year. And when you think about GLP-1s, which a lot of people have gone on, you're going to end up with a society in their 80s that is much more frail because GLP-1, the side effect is decreasing muscle mass. You've got to get in the gym. When you go for a walk, carry weights. Think about how you can add muscle mass, get protein in your body. That is probably the number one thing. The second thing is community. Make sure you're involved in your community. Get outside, enjoy the sunlight. And if you need inspiration or motivation to do that, learn a second language and go travel the world. If you do those things, you will see a significant change in your life. You'll see a significant change, not just in your lifespan. That's the end date. But that last decade, that decade of your 80s, you'll be functional. If your number one challenge is, the number one cost you have is time, let's extend it.
Yeah. So one quick thing, we got 90 seconds left. I've heard and read that the longer you work, the longer you live, and that retiring at an early age and not having anything to do can really cause people to become depressed. And so what do you think about people, continuing to work as they get older?
I think that an active mind right behind exercise is as important. If you look at a true contribution to extending your lifespan, having purpose and being useful, and it can be in a lot of ways, right? You can volunteer. There are tons of young kids that would love mentorship from the senior community. Get out there and do it, right? You can't.
I love it. Jay, how do people find Abacus? How do people get in touch with you guys?
AbacusGM.com. We're a publicly traded company. We trade under the symbol ABX. You can find us. We're everywhere. We run about 80 commercials a week as well. So
I know you do.
To us,
I hear them all the time. Okay, Jay. Well, thank you. I always are more educated and feel more upbeat when I hear from you. So thanks. I hope you'll join again in a future show. And folks, we will be back at the top of the hour. And so do not change that channel because we will be back shortly. Thank you.
Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our country has to offer, especially health care. Across every state, every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.